I held my daughter's hand while the machines beeped their steady rhythm. Grace was 3 years old, and her fingers were so small they barely wrapped around my thumb. The pediatric oncology ward smelled like antiseptic and artificial hope, and I had memorized every crack in the ceiling tiles above her bed. "Mommy, can we go to the park when I feel better?" Grace whispered, her voice scratchy from the breathing tube they had removed that morning. "Absolutely, sweetheart," I said, brushing her thin hair back from her forehead. "We'll go on the swings, just like before." Grace smiled, and for a moment, I could pretend that the cancer ravaging her tiny body was just a nightmare I would wake from. But the doctors had been clear during their last meeting with me. Stage 4, neuroblastoma. The experimental treatment had failed. We were looking at weeks now, maybe days. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Nothing mattered except this moment, this hand in mine, this precious child who had turned my world from black and white into brilliant color the moment she was born. The phone buzzed again, and again. "You can check it, Mommy," Grace said. "I'm okay." I pulled out my phone, expecting messages from my supervisor at the community health clinic where I worked as a nurse. Instead, I saw 17 messages from my sister, Vanessa. The first one made my stomach drop. "Mira, I know this is hard for you, but I really need you to be there for my housewarming party. I finally bought my dream house." I stared at the screen. Vanessa knew Grace was dying. She had visited exactly once in the past 6 months, staying for 20 minutes before complaining about hospital parking fees. I scrolled through the other messages. Each one was more insistent than the last. "Mom and Dad are flying in for it. Everyone will be there. I'm thinking June 15th. Does that work for you? You've been so focused on Grace. I know you need this distraction. June 15th. I looked at my daughter, watched her chest rise and fall with effort. The doctors had given us until mid-June at best. My sister wanted to celebrate her new house during the time I would be burying my child. I did not respond. I put my phone away and sang Grace's favorite lullaby until she fell asleep. That evening, I called Vanessa from the hospital cafeteria. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright and eager. "Mira, did you see my messages? Isn't it exciting? The house has 4 bedrooms and a pool. Can you imagine? Vanessa, I can't talk about party planning right now. Grace is... I know. But you can't put your whole life on hold forever. This is a huge milestone for me, and I need my sister there." I closed my eyes. Vanessa had always been like this. Everything was about her. When I got married, she announced her engagement at my reception. When I graduated nursing school, she showed up late and spent dinner talking about her promotion at the pharmaceutical sales company where she worked. "What date were you thinking?" I asked, even though I already knew. "June 15th. It's perfect. Summer weather, everyone's available. Mom and Dad are so excited. They're already booking their flights from Phoenix." "That's when Grace might..." My voice cracked. "The doctors said we're looking at early to mid-June. I might be planning a funeral then, Vanessa." Silence stretched between us. Then Vanessa sighed, the kind of sigh that said I was being difficult. "Mira, I understand you're going through something awful. I really do. But life goes on, you know, and you can't expect everyone to put their lives on hold indefinitely. If something happens with Grace, we can work around it. But I've already put deposits down with caterers. The invitations are at the printer." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "You're saying your housewarming party is more important than my daughter's life?" "That's not what I'm saying at all. Don't twist my words. I'm saying we can't live in limbo forever. And honestly, you might need the distraction. When was the last time you did something for yourself?" I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Grace died on June 9th, just after sunrise. I was holding her hand. She opened her eyes one last time, smiled at me, and whispered, I love you, Mommy." Then she was gone, and the machine started screaming, and nurses rushed in, and someone was pulling me away from my daughter's body, and I could not breathe. The funeral was set for June 15th. It was the earliest date the funeral home could arrange everything. I called my parents that evening, my voice hollow. "The funeral is on the 15th, I said. "Grace's funeral." My mother was quiet for a moment. "Oh, honey, that's the same day as Vanessa's housewarming party." "I know." "Well, I'm sure Vanessa will understand. She'll reschedule. This is more important." I wanted to believe her. I waited for my mother to say she would call Vanessa immediately. That of course they would be at their granddaughter's funeral. That nothing mattered more than being there for me. Instead, my mother said, "Let me talk to your father and Vanessa. We'll figure something out." That night, Vanessa called me. I almost did not answer, but some part of me hoped she would do the right thing. "Mira, Mom told me about the funeral date," Vanessa said. Her tone was careful, measured. "I'm so sorry about Grace. I really am." "Thank you. But I've been thinking, and I really can't change the party date. I have over 100 people invited. The caterers, the band, everything's set up. It would cost me thousands of dollars to reschedule. I've already lost the deposit on the tent rental because they're booked solid for the rest of summer." I felt like I was underwater, her words reaching me from somewhere far away. "You want me to change my daughter's funeral date?" "Well, I mean, does it have to be that specific day? Can't you do it the week after? Or even the week before? Funerals are more flexible than you think. My friend's mom died last year and they waited almost 3 weeks for the service." Grace is at the funeral home, Vanessa. In a refrigerator. You want me to leave my daughter's body in storage so you can have your party?" "Don't be dramatic. I'm just saying there are options. And honestly, Mira, a funeral is such a sad event. Maybe it would be better for everyone to have some time to process before gathering. You know, let the shock wear off. The shock of my daughter dying. Yes. Look, I don't want to fight with you. You're grieving. And you're not thinking clearly. Why don't you talk to the funeral home? Explain the situation. I'm sure they can accommodate you. Accommodate me around your party." Vanessa's voice hardened. "You're being selfish. This is a huge moment in my life and you're trying to ruin it. Everything is always about you and your problems. Some of us are actually succeeding in life, Mira. Some of us have things to celebrate." I hung up again. This time I turned off my phone. The next morning, my father called the hospital where I was still camping out in the family waiting room, unable to face my empty apartment. Someone at the nurses' station came to find me. "Mira, your father's on the line." I took the call in an empty consulting room. "Honey, your mother and I have been talking," my father said. His voice had that forced cheerfulness he used when delivering bad news. "We think Vanessa has a point. It would be very expensive for her to change everything now. And you know how hard she's worked to get this house. Maybe you could move the funeral? We could all be there if it was a different weekend. You're choosing Vanessa's party over Grace's funeral. We're not choosing anything. We're trying to find a solution that works for everyone. This has been a difficult time for the whole family. Not just you. Vanessa's been stressed about the house closing. Your mother's been worried sick about everyone. I had to take time off work just to deal with all this emotional turmoil." "Emotional turmoil," I repeated. "Your granddaughter died, Dad. And we're heartbroken. You know we are. But Grace wouldn't want us to stop living. She'd want us to celebrate life. Vanessa's new house is about the future, about hope. Maybe that's exactly what this family needs right now." I looked out the window at the parking lot, watched people coming and going, living their normal lives. "So you're going to her party?" My father hesitated. "We've already bought the plane tickets, and Vanessa really needs us there. She's been planning this for months. It's not like we didn't care about Grace. We sent cards. We called when we could. You visited twice in 6 months. We live in Phoenix, Mira. We can't just drop everything and fly out every week. We have lives, too. Responsibilities. Your mother has her book club and her volunteer work. I have golf tournaments. We can't be expected to put everything on hold. Something inside me went very quiet and very cold. Don't come to the funeral, I said. Go to your party. Celebrate Vanessa's house. I hope you all have a wonderful time. Now, Mira, don't be like that. I hung up. My mother called an hour later, then Vanessa, then my father again. I blocked all their numbers. That evening, my best friend Julia came to the hospital with coffee and forced me to eat something. She was the charge nurse in the pediatric intensive care unit, and she had been there through every step of Grace's illness. Your family's insane, Julia said, her dark eyes blazing. Who does this? Who picks a party over a funeral? People who never really cared in the first place, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat. Empty. What are you going to do? Have the funeral. Say goodbye to my daughter. Try to figure out how to keep breathing. Julia squeezed my hand. I'll be there. Everyone from the hospital who loved Grace will be there. You're not alone. But I was alone. I had never felt more alone in my life. The funeral was small. Julia came. Grace's father, David, flew in from Seattle, where he had moved after our divorce. We had split when Grace was 1, and he had been sporadic in his involvement, but he had loved her in his way. His face was ravaged with grief. Some colleagues from the clinic attended. A few neighbors. Grace's preschool teacher, who sobbed through the entire service. My family was not there. I stood at Grace's tiny white casket and delivered the eulogy I had written at 3 a.m, my hands shaking so badly the paper rattled. I talked about her laugh, her love of strawberries, the way she sang made-up songs about everything she saw. I talked about her bravery, how she never complained even when the treatments made her so sick she could not lift her head. I talked about the light she brought into the world, and how that light had been extinguished far too soon. I did not mention my sister. I did not mention my parents. I did not mention that half the people who should have been there were instead eating catered food by a pool, celebrating square footage and granite countertops. After the service, after Grace was lowered into the ground, after I threw dirt onto her casket and heard the hollow sound it made, I went home to my apartment. It was full of Grace's things. Her toys, her clothes, her drawings covering the refrigerator. I sat on the floor of her bedroom and opened my laptop. I unblocked my family's numbers, not because I wanted to reconcile, but because I wanted to see what they had posted. Vanessa's social media was full of party photos. She wore a flowing white dress, her blonde hair perfect, her smile radiant. The house looked spectacular. String lights hung over the pool. Tables overflowed with food. People danced on the lawn. My parents were in several photos, glasses raised, laughing. One photo showed my mother and Vanessa embracing, both of them teary-eyed with joy. The caption read, "So grateful to have my amazing mom here for the biggest day of my life. Nothing is better than family." Another post from Vanessa, time-stamped at 2 p.m, right when I had been standing at Grace's graveside. Surrounded by love and support on this perfect day, my heart is so full. "Here's to new beginnings," my father had commented. "So proud of my successful daughter. You've earned every bit of this happiness." I closed the laptop before I threw it through a window. The next week, my mother called. I answered, curious to see what she would say. "Mira, honey, I know you're upset with us, but we need to talk about this like adults. You can't just cut off your whole family because of one disagreement." One disagreement. Yes. We had different opinions about scheduling. That doesn't mean we don't love you. We're your family. You need to forgive us and move on. Did you have a good time at the party? I asked. My mother hesitated. It was lovely. Vanessa's house is beautiful, but we thought about you the whole time. We really did. You thought about me while you were dancing by the pool. Mira, you're being vindictive. Vanessa worked so hard for that house. We couldn't let her down. And honestly, it wasn't like we could do anything for Grace. She was already gone. Our being at the funeral wouldn't have changed that. It would have changed it for me. You need to stop being so selfish. Everything isn't about you and your feelings. Vanessa has feelings too. She was hurt that you made such a big deal about the date conflict. She felt like you were trying to overshadow her accomplishment. I laughed. It sounded unhinged, even to me. I was burying my daughter, and Vanessa felt overshadowed. You know what I mean. You've always had a flair for drama, Mira, ever since you were little. Always needing attention, always making everything into a crisis. We love you, but we can't enable this behavior anymore. Don't call me again, I said. Mira Jane, don't you dare. I hung up and blocked them all again. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. My sister's words echoed in my head. A minor event. That was what she had called Grace's funeral in one of her messages. A minor event that she could work around if necessary. My daughter's funeral was a minor event. Something crystallized inside me. Cold. Hard. Unbreakable. They wanted me to forgive them. To move on. To pretend this had been a simple scheduling conflict. An unfortunate misunderstanding. But it was not. It was a choice. They had chosen Vanessa's party over my daughter's funeral. They had chosen granite countertops over grief. They had chosen to celebrate while I buried my child. And they expected me to just accept it. To be the bigger person. To prioritize family harmony over my own shattered heart. I got out of bed and went to my laptop. I started making lists. I started doing research. I started planning. If they thought they could do this to me and face no consequences, they were wrong. If they thought their lives would just continue on, perfect and unblemished while I drowned in grief and rage, they were mistaken. I had always been the responsible one, the caretaker, the one who smoothed things over, who forgave, who maintained peace. I was a nurse. I had dedicated my life to helping people, to healing, to caring for those who suffered. But caring had gotten me nothing except betrayal. And I was done caring about people who did not care about me. Vanessa wanted to celebrate her success. I would make sure she had nothing left to celebrate. My parents wanted to enable her selfishness. They would learn what it cost. I had weeks of unused vacation time. I had savings I had been putting away for Grace's future, money that now had no purpose. I had skills, intelligence, and determination. Most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. Over the next 3 days, I made phone calls. I pulled records. I asked careful questions of the right people. I had spent years working in healthcare, building relationships, learning how systems worked. Those connections were about to become very useful. By the end of the week, I had what I needed: information, leverage, a plan that would unravel everything Vanessa had built. Because my sister did not just sell pharmaceuticals. She had been cutting corners, falsifying sales reports, pushing doctors to prescribe medications for off-label uses that could harm patients. And I had proof. I started with the pharmaceutical board. Vanessa worked for Healthwise Pharmaceuticals, a mid-sized company that specialized in pain management medications. She had been their top sales representative for 3 years running, earning bonuses that dwarfed my annual salary. She drove a luxury car, wore designer clothes, and had just bought a house worth $800,000. All of it built on fraud. During one of Grace's hospital stays, I had overheard 2 doctors discussing a sales representative who had been pressuring them to prescribe higher doses of a new pain medication than recommended. They mentioned the rep by name, Vanessa. At the time, I had dismissed it as coincidence. My sister was aggressive in her sales tactics, but surely she would not do anything illegal. But then I started paying attention. I listened to conversations. I asked casual questions. I discovered that Vanessa had been offering kickbacks to doctors, disguised as consulting fees, and speaking honorariums. She had been falsifying prescription data to meet sales quotas. Most damningly, she had been encouraging off-label use of a medication that had serious cardiac side effects, leading to at least 2 patient deaths that I could trace. I had documentation. Emails that Vanessa had foolishly sent from her personal account, complaining to friends about the stupid rules she had to work around. Text messages where she joked about doctors being easy money. Recorded phone calls from the hospital system where she had pushed physicians to prescribe higher doses than medically indicated. I compiled everything into a detailed report. Then, I contacted an investigative journalist named Trevor, who had written extensively about pharmaceutical fraud. I had met him 2 years ago when he was researching a story on healthcare costs and interviewed several nurses from my clinic. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Austin on a Wednesday morning. Trevor was in his 40s, with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "This is substantial," he said, flipping through the documents I had brought. "Where did you get all this?" "I'm a nurse. I work in the system. I pay attention." "And the subject is your sister?" "Yes." Trevor looked at me carefully. "This will destroy her career, probably result in criminal charges. Are you sure you want to do this?" "She called my daughter's funeral a minor event," I said. "She scheduled her housewarming party on the same day and expected me to change the funeral. My parents went to her party instead of supporting me. So yes, I am very sure." Trevor nodded slowly. "I need to verify everything independently. It'll take me a few weeks. But if this all checks out, I'll run the story. The pharmaceutical board will have to investigate. That's all I ask." I left the coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The first domino was positioned. Now I just had to wait for it to fall. While Trevor investigated, I turned my attention to my parents. They had enabled Vanessa's behavior my entire life. They had chosen her over me again and again. They deserved consequences too. My parents, Harold and Janet, lived in a retirement community in Phoenix. They had sold the family home in Dallas 5 years ago and moved to Arizona for the warm weather and low taxes. My father was a retired accountant. My mother had been a real estate agent before retiring. They were comfortable, but not wealthy. Their retirement income came from my father's pension, Social Security, and a modest investment portfolio he managed himself. I knew my father's investment strategy because he had talked about it endlessly whenever we visited. He was proud of his financial acumen, always bragging about the returns he generated. He kept everything in a brokerage account he monitored daily. I also knew that my father used the same password for everything. I had seen him log into various accounts over the years, always typing the same combination: the street name of our old house plus my mother's birth year. He thought he was being clever by not using something obvious like birthdays or pet names. I did not plan to steal from my parents. That would be criminal. But I could make their financial life significantly more complicated. I created several email addresses with names similar to legitimate financial institutions. I sent my father official-looking correspondence about suspicious activity on his accounts, about required tax documentation for phantom investments, about urgent security updates needed immediately. I knew my father. He would panic. He would make impulsive decisions. He would call his brokerage at odd hours, demanding explanations for things that did not exist. He would freeze accounts, transfer money, create chaos trying to protect assets that were not actually threatened. I also sent carefully crafted emails to my mother, posing as someone from her old real estate firm, asking about commission discrepancies from years ago, suggesting potential tax audits, requesting documentation she no longer had. Within a week, My father called Vanessa in a panic. I knew because Vanessa posted about it on social media, complaining about having to deal with family drama when she was trying to enjoy her new house. My dad thinks his accounts are compromised, she posted. Spent 2 hours on the phone trying to calm him down. Why are old people so bad with technology? Perfect. 2 weeks after my meeting with Trevor, he called. I've verified everything, he said. This story runs tomorrow. The pharmaceutical board has already been notified and they're opening an investigation. Federal prosecutors are looking at it too. Your sister is about to have a very bad day. Thank you. I'm sorry about your daughter, Trevor added. I have a kid. I can't imagine what you went through. I hope this gives you some peace. It would not give me peace. Nothing would bring Grace back. But it would give me satisfaction, and that was enough. The article published on a Thursday morning. It was front-page news on the online edition of the Austin Chronicle, with a headline that left no room for misinterpretation. Top pharmaceutical sales rep accused of fraud, kickbacks, and endangering patients. Vanessa's name was in the first paragraph. Her photo, pulled from her own social media, accompanied the article. The piece detailed years of fraudulent activity, complete with specific examples, documented evidence, and quotes from doctors who confirmed the pressure tactics she had used. By noon, Vanessa's social media accounts had been deleted. By afternoon, news vans were parked outside her new house. By evening, Healthwise Pharmaceuticals had issued a statement announcing her immediate termination and full cooperation with all investigations. My phone rang continuously. I ignored every call from my family. Instead, I went to Grace's grave and sat on the grass beside her headstone. I started it, sweetheart, I whispered. They're going to understand what they did. They're going to feel even a fraction of what I felt. The stone was still new, the grass around it not yet fully grown in. Grace's name was etched in simple letters: Grace Elizabeth, beloved daughter, born into love, taken too soon. I traced the letters with my finger and tried not to think about how small her casket had been. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Vanessa, clearly using a friend's phone since I had blocked her. How could you do this to me? I'm your sister. You've destroyed my life. Mom and Dad are devastated. You're a monster. I deleted the message without responding. That evening, Julia came over with takeout food I could not eat. She sat with me on the couch, not saying anything, just being present. The story's everywhere, she finally said. People are talking about it at the hospital. Some of the doctors mentioned in the article work with us. Good. Mira, are you okay? No, but I will be. Julia looked at me with concern. Revenge doesn't usually make people feel better. It just makes them feel empty. I already feel empty, I said. At least now I'm not alone in it. The pharmaceutical board investigation moved quickly. Federal prosecutors filed charges within a month. Vanessa faced multiple felony counts: healthcare fraud, kickbacks, conspiracy to defraud the United States. Each charge carried significant prison time. She tried to call me, to text me, to show up at my apartment. I had the locks changed and installed a security camera. When she appeared on my doorstep, crying and begging, I watched from inside and did not open the door. Please, Mira, she sobbed into the intercom. Please talk to me. I'm sorry about the funeral. I was wrong. I admit it. But this is too much. You're destroying me over one mistake, one bad decision. Is that really fair? I pressed the button to respond. You called Grace's funeral a minor event. You celebrated while I buried my daughter. Fair doesn't exist anymore, Vanessa. You taught me that. I hung up and closed the curtains. My parents finally reached me through the clinic, calling during work hours and telling the receptionist it was a family emergency. I took the call in the break room, my hand tight around the phone. "What you did to your sister is unforgivable," my mother said without preamble. "You've ruined her life out of spite. Over a party, Mira. A party. This is insane." It wasn't about the party. It was about what the party represented. "You chose her happiness over my grief. You chose a house over my daughter. We chose to be there for both our daughters. We couldn't be in two places at once. That doesn't make us monsters." "You could have been at the funeral," I said, my voice very calm. "You could have told Vanessa to reschedule. You could have done anything except what you did. But you made your choice. Now live with it. And what Vanessa did with her job has nothing to do with us. You can't punish us for her mistakes." "I'm not punishing you for her mistakes. I'm punishing you for yours. Consider the financial chaos you've been experiencing a gift. A reminder that actions have consequences." Silence. Then my mother's voice turned cold. "That was you? The emails, the account issues? You've been sabotaging your own father?" "I've been creating inconvenience for people who showed me no compassion when I needed it most. Seems proportional to me. You need help, professional help. This isn't normal behavior. Normal was watching my daughter die. Normal was standing at her grave alone. Normal was seeing my family celebrate while I grieved. I'm done with normal." I hung up. The next phase of my plan required patience. I waited 3 months, letting Vanessa's legal troubles mount. Her bail was set at $200,000. She had to put up her new house as collateral. Her legal fees were astronomical. She was radioactive in the pharmaceutical industry, unable to find work even in unrelated fields. My parents had to help her financially. I knew they would. They always rescued Vanessa. I watched from a distance as they liquidated investments to pay her lawyers, as they took out a second mortgage on their retirement condo to cover her bail, as they went into debt, defending their golden child. Then I contacted several news outlets with a different angle on the story. I provided them with photos from Vanessa's housewarming party. Photos of my parents laughing, celebrating, toasting her success. I gave them the timestamps showing exactly when those photos were taken. I gave them the date of my daughter's funeral. The follow-up articles were brutal. While niece was buried, family celebrated house built on fraud. Parents chose party over grandchild's funeral, now bankrupt supporting criminal daughter. The story went viral. Social media erupted with outrage. People who had never met my family sent them hate messages. My parents' retirement community received complaints. Vanessa's neighbors, who had been at her party, were interviewed and expressed shock and disgust. The court of public opinion was vicious. My mother called from yet another number, her voice ragged. "Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? We've lost everything. Our savings, our reputation, our peace. Strangers spit at us in grocery stores. We can't go anywhere without being recognized and harassed. Your father had a heart attack from the stress. He's in the hospital. Does that make you feel better?" "Is he going to die?" I asked. "What? Is my father going to die? Because if he is, I should probably know so I can schedule accordingly. I'd hate to have any conflicts with my plans." My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. "How did you become this person?" "You made me this person," I said. "You taught me that family means nothing, that love is conditional, that some celebrations matter more than other people's grief. I learned from the best. Grace wouldn't want this. She was a sweet child. She'd be horrified by what you're doing." The mention of my daughter's name in my mother's mouth made me see red. "Don't you dare talk about Grace. You have no right to her memory. You abandoned her. You chose a party over her funeral. She stopped being your granddaughter the moment you made that choice. We loved Grace. You loved the idea of Grace. The perfect granddaughter you could post about on social media, take photos with on holidays, brag about to your friends. You never loved the reality of Grace. The sick child who needed actual support, actual presence, actual sacrifice. That was too inconvenient for you. That's not true. It's completely true. You visited her twice in 6 months. Twice. While she was dying. You couldn't be bothered to fly out more than that, because it would interfere with golf and book club. So don't pretend you loved her. Don't pretend you're anything other than selfish people who only care about appearances. My mother was crying now. We're your parents. We made mistakes, but we tried our best. We don't deserve this. I was your daughter. I made no mistakes except loving you. I didn't deserve what you did to me either. Life isn't fair, Mother. You taught me that lesson very well. I hung up and blocked that number too. 4 months after the initial article, Vanessa's trial began. The evidence was overwhelming. She took a plea deal. 5 years in federal prison, restitution to victims, permanent ban from working in pharmaceuticals or healthcare. Her sentencing hearing was public. I attended, sitting in the back of the courtroom. Vanessa saw me. Our eyes met across the room. Hers were filled with tears and hatred in equal measure. The judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing. Vanessa stood, her designer clothes replaced with a plain gray suit, her perfect hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. I take responsibility for my actions, she said, her voice shaking. I made terrible choices. I hurt people. I violated the trust of medical professionals and patients. I deserve punishment. She paused, looked directly at me. But I want the court to know that my own sister orchestrated my downfall. Not out of concern for patient safety, not out of righteousness, but out of revenge over a family disagreement. She deliberately destroyed my life to punish me for attending my housewarming party instead of her daughter's funeral. She's not a hero. She's vindictive and cruel, and she used the legal system as a weapon. The prosecutor objected. The judge sustained. But Vanessa had said what she wanted to say. The judge sentenced her to the agreed-upon 5 years. As she was led away, Vanessa looked back at me one more time. I held her gaze, my face expressionless, until she turned away. My parents tried one final time to reach me. They came to Austin, showed up at the clinic where I worked. Security called me down to the lobby. They looked terrible. My father had lost weight, his face gray and haggard. My mother's hands shook. They had aged a decade in 6 months. We're leaving Phoenix, my father said. We can't afford to stay. We've sold the condo at a loss. We're moving to a smaller place in Oklahoma, near your aunt. We wanted to see you before we left. Okay? Okay? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Dad? I want you to tell us we can fix this. That we're still a family. That there's a way forward. I looked at my parents. These people who had given me life but never really saw me. These people who had taught me that love was something you earned by being convenient, by not making trouble, by accepting whatever scraps of affection they were willing to provide. There's no family here, I said. You killed it when you chose a party over a funeral, when you told me my grief was less important than Vanessa's celebration, when you made me bury my daughter alone. We've lost everything, my mother whispered. Our home, our savings, our daughter is in prison, our reputation is destroyed. Haven't we been punished enough? I lost my daughter, I said. My 3-year-old daughter who loved strawberries and singing, who fought cancer with more bravery than you've shown in your entire lives, who died asking if we could go to the park when she felt better. I lost everything that mattered, and you couldn't even show up. We're sorry, my father said. We're so sorry. We made a terrible mistake, but this vendetta has to end. This cruelty has to stop. It has stopped, I said. I'm done. Vanessa's in prison. You're bankrupt. My revenge is complete. But that doesn't mean I forgive you. That doesn't mean we're family again. It just means I'm finished destroying you because there's nothing left to destroy." My mother reached for my hand. I stepped back. "Don't contact me again. Don't come here again. Don't send messages or letters or intermediaries. We're done. Permanently." "Mira, please. My name isn't Mira to you anymore. I'm a stranger. Treat me like one." I walked away. Security escorted my parents out. I never saw them again. 6 months after Vanessa was imprisoned, I received a letter from her. It had been opened and screened by prison authorities before being forwarded to me. I almost threw it away, but curiosity made me read it. The handwriting was messy, not like Vanessa's usually perfect script. "Mira, I don't expect you to forgive me. I probably don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to understand something. I was wrong about the party. I should have canceled it. I should have been at Grace's funeral. I was selfish and horrible, and I've had a lot of time to think about that. But what you did went beyond justice. You didn't just expose my crimes. You orchestrated my complete destruction. You ruined Mom and Dad financially. You turned the entire world against us. You weaponized my mistakes to serve your need for revenge. I'm in prison because I deserve to be. But you put me here not because you cared about my victims, but because you wanted me to suffer. And I am suffering. Every day. I've lost my career, my house, my freedom, my family. I've lost everything. I hope it was worth it. I hope my pain fills the hole Grace left in your heart. But I don't think it will. I think you'll always be empty, no matter how many people you destroy. I loved Grace too. I know I didn't show it well. I know I was a terrible aunt. But I did love her. And I think she'd be sad to see what you've become. Vanessa." I read the letter twice. Then I burned it in my kitchen sink and washed the ashes down the drain. A year after Grace died, I stood at her grave on a Sunday morning. The grass had filled in completely now. Flowers grew around the headstone, planted by the groundskeepers. The cemetery was quiet except for birds singing in the trees. "I did what I set out to do," I told her. "Vanessa's in prison. Mom and Dad lost everything. Everyone knows what they did to us. Everyone knows they chose a party over your funeral." The wind rustled through the leaves. Somewhere nearby, someone was placing flowers on another grave. "Vanessa said you'd be sad about what I became. Maybe she's right. Maybe you would be disappointed in me. But I needed them to understand. I needed them to hurt the way I hurt." I sat down on the grass, leaning against the headstone. "The thing is, sweetheart, it doesn't feel the way I thought it would. I thought I'd feel satisfied, vindicated. I thought watching them suffer would somehow balance the scales. But it just feels empty. Different empty than before, but still empty." A woman walked past with a small child, a little girl about Grace's age. The child was laughing, running ahead of her mother, full of life and energy. I watched them until they disappeared behind a mausoleum, and the ache in my chest threatened to split me open. "I miss you so much," I whispered. "Every single day, every single moment. Nothing makes it better. Not revenge, not justice, not anything. You're just gone. And I'm still here. And I don't know how to live in a world without you." I stayed until the sun was high overhead, talking to a headstone, pretending my daughter could hear me. When I finally left the cemetery, I drove to the support group meeting I had been attending for the past 6 months. It met in a church basement every Sunday afternoon, a gathering of parents who had lost children. I had resisted going for a long time, convinced that nothing could help, that I was beyond comfort. But Julia had insisted. She had driven me to the first meeting, sat with me through it, held my hand when I cried. The group facilitator was a woman named Patricia, who had lost her son to leukemia 15 years earlier. She had kind eyes and a gentle manner, and she never pushed anyone to share before they were ready. I had not spoken during meetings for the first 2 months. I just sat and listened to other parents talk about their grief, their guilt, their desperate attempts to find meaning in loss that had no meaning. Eventually, I started talking. I told them about Grace, about the cancer, about her bravery, about how she died. I did not tell them about the revenge. That was separate, private, something I carried alone. Today, Patricia asked how everyone was managing with the approaching holidays. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. Christmas would follow soon after. The first holiday season without Grace had been unbearable. The second was approaching fast, and I felt unprepared. "I'm dreading it," admitted Robert, a father who had lost his teenage daughter in a car accident. "Last year I couldn't even look at a Christmas tree without breaking down. This year I don't know if I can do it at all." "I'm putting up decorations," said Margaret, whose infant son had died of sudden infant death syndrome. "It feels wrong, like I'm betraying him by celebrating. But I have other children who need normalcy, who need to see that life continues." The conversation continued around the circle. When it reached me, I hesitated. "I don't have family anymore," I said finally. "My parents and sister aren't in my life. So the holidays are just empty days on the calendar. That's easier in some ways, harder in others." Patricia nodded. "Grief often reshapes our relationships. Some connections deepen. Others break under the strain. These ones needed to break," I said. "They were already broken. I just finally saw it clearly." After the meeting, a woman named Diane approached me. She had lost her daughter to brain cancer 2 years earlier, and we had spoken a few times before. "I heard about your sister," she said quietly. "The pharmaceutical fraud case. I saw your name mentioned in one of the articles." My stomach tightened. "Yes. I don't judge you for it. I want you to know that. I understand the need to make people accountable, to make them see what they did." "Thank you." Diane squeezed my arm. "But I also want you to be careful. Revenge can become addictive. It can consume you the way grief does. Don't let it be the only thing that keeps you moving forward." I thought about her words on the drive home. Was revenge consuming me? Or had it simply filled a void that nothing else could touch? I did not have an answer. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into nursing with an intensity that worried Julia. I took extra shifts. I volunteered for the most difficult cases. I stayed late, came in early, worked through lunch breaks. The clinic director, a physician named Dr. Harrison, called me into his office one afternoon. "Mira, you're one of our best nurses. You know that. Your patient care is exemplary. But you're burning out. I can see it. Everyone can see it." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You've worked 50-hour weeks for 3 months straight. You haven't taken a vacation day since your daughter passed. You need rest." "Work helps. It keeps me focused." Dr. Harrison leaned back in his chair, studying me. "I lost my brother when I was in medical school. Motorcycle accident. I did exactly what you're doing. Worked myself to exhaustion trying to outrun the grief. It doesn't work. The grief is always waiting when you stop." "So what's the alternative? Sit at home and fall apart?" "The alternative is finding a way to live with the grief instead of running from it. Therapy, support groups, time to process. Not just work, work, work until you collapse." "I'm already in a support group." "That's good, but you also need to give yourself permission to heal. To have a life beyond your daughter's death. That doesn't mean forgetting her. It means learning to carry her memory without letting it destroy you." I left his office feeling agitated. Everyone had advice about grief. Everyone thought they knew the right way to mourn, the proper timeline for healing, the appropriate methods of coping. But none of them had buried a 3-year-old. None of them had been abandoned by their family in their darkest hour. None of them understood the particular combination of rage and anguish that lived in my chest, inseparable and constant. 2 months before the second anniversary of Grace's death, I received an unexpected phone call. The area code was from Oklahoma, where my parents had moved. It was not my parents calling. It was my aunt, Lydia, my father's sister. I had not spoken to her since before Grace died. "Mira, I know you probably don't want to hear from family right now, but I need to tell you something. Your father had another heart attack, a serious one this time. He's in intensive care." I felt nothing. No panic, no concern, no sadness. "Okay. Your mother asked me to call. She's afraid to contact you directly. She wanted you to know in case you wanted to visit." "I don't." Lydia sighed. "I know what happened. Your mother told me everything. About the funeral, about Vanessa, about all of it. What they did was wrong, Mira. Unforgivably wrong. But your father might die. Don't you want to say goodbye?" He said goodbye to me when he chose a party over his granddaughter's funeral. There's nothing left to say. He's eaten up with guilt. Both of them are. They know they failed you. They just don't know how to fix it. They can't fix it. It's broken permanently. So you're just going to let him die without any reconciliation? You're going to carry that forever? I'm already carrying forever, Aunt Lydia. My daughter is dead. She died scared and in pain, and the people who should have supported me abandoned me. If my father dies, that's not my burden. That's his consequence. You've become so hard. I've become realistic. I spent my whole life believing family meant something. That blood created obligation. I was wrong. Family is just people who happen to share DNA. If they don't act like family, they don't deserve to be treated like family. Grace wouldn't want this. Everyone kept invoking Grace, as if her memory gave them authority to judge my choices. Grace is dead. She doesn't want anything. And she died knowing her grandparents cared more about a party than about her. So don't tell me what she would want. I hung up. My father did not die. He recovered enough to leave the hospital, though he was permanently weakened. I heard this through mutual acquaintances, not through family contact. I felt no relief at his survival. I felt nothing at all. The second anniversary of Grace's death arrived on June 9th. I took the day off work. I went to the cemetery early, before the heat of the day set in. Her grave looked the same as always. Peaceful, well-maintained. A permanent reminder that my daughter existed, that she mattered, that she was loved. I brought strawberries and placed them beside the headstone, Grace's favorite fruit. 2 years, I said aloud. 2 years since you left me. It doesn't feel shorter. It doesn't hurt less. People said time would help. They lied. I sat on the grass, cross-legged, the way I used to sit when we had picnics in the park, before she got too sick to leave the hospital. I destroyed them, Grace. Everyone who hurt us. Vanessa's in prison. Mom and Dad lost everything. They're old and broken and alone. I did that. I made it happen. The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows across the graves. Vanessa said you'd be disappointed in me. Maybe that's true. You were so sweet, so forgiving. Even when you were in pain, you never wanted anyone else to hurt. But I'm not you, sweetheart. I never was. I tried to be good, tried to be the bigger person, tried to forgive and move on. It got me nothing except more pain. I traced her name on the headstone again, the ritual I performed every visit. I don't regret it. That's what you need to know. I don't regret making them pay for what they did. They deserved every bit of suffering I caused. But Diane was right. Revenge didn't fill the emptiness. It just gave me something to focus on besides missing you. A groundskeeper was mowing grass in the distance, the sound a low hum in the quiet morning. I don't know what comes next. I don't know how to live without you, and without the mission of making them hurt. I don't know who I am when I'm not grieving or planning or executing revenge. That scares me more than anything. I stayed until noon, talking to my daughter, crying, remembering. When I finally left, I felt hollowed out, but somehow lighter, as if speaking the truth aloud had released something I had been holding too tightly. That evening, Julia came over with dinner. We ate Thai food on my couch, while a movie played that neither of us watched. "How are you doing?" Julia asked. "Really doing?" "I don't know. I accomplished what I set out to do. I made them suffer. I got justice, or revenge, or whatever you want to call it. But now what? Now you figure out how to live. I don't know if I remember how." Julia set down her food and turned to face me. "You're one of the strongest people I know, Mira. You survived watching your daughter die. You survived being abandoned by your family. You survived grief that would have broken most people. You can survive this too. What if I don't want to just survive? What if I want to actually live but forgot how? Then you learn again. One day at a time. One choice at a time." We sat in silence for a while, the weight of loss and possibility hanging between us. "Do you think I'm a terrible person?" I asked. "For what I did to them?" Julia considered carefully before answering. "I think you're a person who was hurt beyond measure and struck back. I think you made choices I might not have made. But I also think they earned what happened to them. They chose cruelty when you needed compassion. They face consequences now. Vanessa said I weaponized the legal system for revenge. You exposed legitimate crimes. The revenge part was choosing to do it. But the crimes were real. The victims were real. Maybe your motivations were personal, but the outcome was justice. Justice that I only pursued because I wanted to hurt her. Does that make the justice less valid?" I did not have an answer. 3 months after the second anniversary, I made a decision. I contacted a lawyer and had official cease and desist letters sent to my parents and Vanessa. No contact through any means, directly or through intermediaries for any reason. Violation would result in legal action. It felt final, permanent. The last door closing on a relationship that had been dying my whole life. I also made another decision. I started volunteering with a pediatric cancer support organization, working with families who were navigating the same nightmare I had survived. I helped them understand medical jargon, navigate hospital bureaucracy, find resources they did not know existed. It was hard. Every child I met reminded me of Grace. Every desperate parent reflected my own past desperation, but it also felt meaningful in a way revenge never had. One evening, I sat with a mother whose 5-year-old son was in end-stage leukemia. She was young, maybe 25, and completely overwhelmed. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "How do I watch my child die?" "You just do it," I said. "One moment at a time. You be there. You hold his hand. You tell him you love him. You make every second count. What comes after? How do you survive it?" I thought about Grace, about the past 2 years, about everything I had done and everything I had lost. You survive by choosing to. Every day you wake up and choose to keep breathing. Some days that's all you can do. Other days you can do more. But it starts with the choice. Does it get easier? No, it gets different. The grief changes shape. The pain becomes familiar instead of shocking. You learn to carry it. But easier? No, she cried then, and I held her, this stranger who was living my nightmare all over again. When I left that evening, I felt something shift inside me. Not healing exactly, but maybe the first whisper of purpose beyond pain. The months continued. Vanessa remained in prison, her appeals denied. My parents stayed in Oklahoma, aging and isolated. I heard through the family grapevine that they had tried reaching out to other relatives, attempting to explain their side of the story, but found little sympathy. The court of public opinion had ruled against them permanently. I learned that Vanessa's new house had been sold to cover her restitution payments, that my parents had declared bankruptcy, that the weight of their choices had crushed them as thoroughly as I had intended. I waited to feel triumphant. I never did. What I felt instead was tired. Tired of anger, tired of pain, tired of living in the past. Grace was gone. My family was gone. The revenge was complete. But I was still here, still breathing, still moving through days that felt empty of meaning. One Sunday at the support group, Patricia asked us to share something we were grateful for. It was a common exercise, one I usually resisted. When the circle reached me, I surprised myself by speaking. I'm grateful that I learned who I could trust. I'm grateful that I found out what my family really was before wasting more years on them. I'm grateful for the time I had with Grace, even though it was too short. And I'm grateful that I'm still capable of helping other people, even after everything. Patricia smiled. That's growth, Mira. Real growth. Maybe it was. Or maybe it was just acceptance that revenge had run its course and left me standing in the wreckage, forced to figure out what came next. On the 3rd anniversary of Grace's death, I went to the cemetery as always. But this time, I brought Julia with me. She stood quietly beside me while I placed flowers and strawberries at the headstone. I love you, Grace, I said. I always will. Every day for the rest of my life. You made me a better person while you were here. After you left, I became someone else. Someone harder. Someone capable of cruelty I never imagined. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Your aunt was right. You probably would be disappointed in what I did, but I can't regret it. They hurt us. They chose wrong. They needed to understand that choices have consequences. Julia squeezed my shoulder gently. I'm trying to find my way back now. Not to who I was before you died, because that person is gone too, but to someone who can live with the grief instead of being consumed by it. Someone who honors your memory by helping others, instead of just hurting the people who failed us. I touched the headstone one last time. I hope wherever you are, you're happy. I hope you're running through parks and eating strawberries and singing your made-up songs. I hope you know how much you were loved, how much you're still loved. Julia and I left the cemetery together. We went to lunch at a small cafe, and for the first time in 3 years, I talked about Grace without crying. I told Julia stories about her daughter's laugh, her strange observations about the world, her fearless imagination. She sounds like she was amazing, Julia said. She was. She really was. That evening, I received one final message, forwarded through my lawyer. It was from my mother, sent through official channels as required by the cease and desist order. Mira, I know you never want to hear from us again. I'm respecting that. This is the last time I'll try to reach you. I just need you to know that we're sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. We failed you in the worst possible way. We chose wrong, and we've paid for it. We lost everything that mattered. Our daughter is in prison. Our granddaughter is dead. We're estranged from you. We're alone, broke, and broken. You got your revenge. I hope it brought you peace. I hope Grace is proud of what you became. I'll always love you, even if you can't love us anymore. Mom. I read it once, then deleted it. Vanessa served 3 years before being released on parole. I learned this through a news alert I had set up to track her case. She was required to live in a halfway house and work at minimum wage jobs, forbidden from any position involving healthcare or sales. I did not contact her. I did not attend her release. She was a stranger to me now, connected only by shared DNA and shared history that meant nothing anymore. My parents continued their quiet life in Oklahoma. My father's health remained fragile. My mother, I heard, had aged dramatically, her hair gone completely white, her hands shaking with a tremor that might have been physical or might have been the accumulated weight of guilt and loss. They had lost their golden child to prison and their other daughter to justified rage. They had lost their comfortable retirement to legal fees and bankruptcy. They had lost their reputation, their community, their peace. The consequences I had orchestrated had played out exactly as I intended. They suffered. They understood. They paid for choosing a party over a funeral, for valuing celebration over grief, for abandoning me when I needed them most. And yet, as I sat in my apartment on a quiet Tuesday evening, 3 years and 7 months after Grace died, I realized something important. The revenge had been necessary. It had been earned. It had been just. But it had not healed me. It had not brought Grace back. It had not filled the void her death created. What had started to heal me, slowly and painfully, was choosing to move forward. Choosing to help other families facing what I had faced. Choosing to find purpose in the grief instead of drowning in it. Choosing to honor Grace's memory by being someone who created light instead of just distributing darkness. I looked at the photo of Grace on my mantle, the one from her 3rd birthday, 2 months before her diagnosis. She was laughing, her face covered in chocolate cake, her eyes bright with joy. "I walked away from them forever, sweetheart," I whispered to the photo. "They hurt us, and I made sure they understood what that meant. The revenge journey taught me that sometimes the people who should love us most are capable of the deepest betrayal. But it also taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew, strong enough to survive losing you, strong enough to destroy the people who failed us, and maybe strong enough to build something meaningful from the wreckage." Outside my window, the city continued its endless rhythm. People lived their lives, unaware of my story, untouched by my grief or my rage. The world kept turning, indifferent to loss, indifferent to revenge, indifferent to everything except its own momentum. And I kept turning with it, carrying Grace's memory, carrying the weight of what I had done, carrying the possibility that someday the burden might feel less like punishment and more like a different kind of strength.